Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by asking you a question that might sting a little bit. What if the reason you don't have the life you dream about isn't because of your boss, isn't because of the economy, isn't because of your family, but because of you? See, that question either makes you uncomfortable or it wakes you up. And here's the truth. Success has never been an outside job. It has always been an inside job. Success depends on you. People love to believe that success is something outside of themselves. They point at the economy, they point at their job, they point at their family background, and they say, that's why I'm not where I want to be. But here's the reality that most people don't want to face. Success is not an outside job. Success is an inside job. And until you take ownership of that truth, you'll keep chasing opportunities, but never creating outcomes. The world doesn't owe you success, but you owe it to yourself to cultivate it from the inside out. Now, I know that's not easy to hear, but it's the most freeing thing once you accept it. Because if success depended on the government, on your boss, on your parents, on your friends, then you'd have no control over it. You'd be a puppet pulled by somebody else's strings. But if success depends on you, then you can take back the pen and start writing the story of your life. That's power. That's freedom. That's the beginning of transformation. And here's the hook. If you don't like the results you're living with today, you don't have to stay there. You can rewrite them by changing what's inside you. Think about it like this. The same soil that can grow weeds can also grow flowers. The soil doesn't care. It will grow whatever you plant in it. Your mind is the exact same way. If you plant doubt, fear, and excuses, you will harvest mediocrity. If you plant faith, discipline, and courage, you will harvest success. Most people are so busy complaining about the weeds in their life that they never stop to realize they're the ones planting them every day with their thoughts and actions. If you want a different harvest, you've got to plant different seeds. And that's an inside job. You've probably heard someone say, when my boss recognizes me, then I'll get promoted. When the timing is right, then I'll start my business. When life settles down, then I'll focus on my goals. And here's the truth. When you outsource your future to when, you guarantee you'll never experience now. The people who win are the people who stop waiting and start deciding. They don't wait for conditions to line up. They create conditions from the inside out. And when you do that, external circumstances lose their power over you. Let me hit you with this. Every person you've ever admired had reasons to quit. Every person you've ever studied who built wealth, created success, and transformed their lives had challenges, setbacks, failures, and pain. The difference wasn't in their background. It wasn't in their bank account. It wasn't in their connections. The difference was inside of them. They made a decision that their destiny mattered more than their excuses. They made a decision that their belief in what was possible was stronger than the doubt that surrounded them. And that decision made all the difference. The good news is you can make that same decision today. Nobody can stop you from deciding to think differently, to act differently, to believe differently. And when you change on the inside, the outside has no choice but to follow. You see, your income will never grow beyond your mindset. Your opportunities will never grow beyond your belief system. And your influence will never grow beyond your self-discipline. Success begins in the heart in the mind, in the daily choices you make when nobody is watching. That's why I say success is an inside job. And here's the final hook. If you're waiting for the world to hand you success, you'll be waiting forever. But if you decide today to take full responsibility for your growth, your vision, and your future, you've just unlocked the one truth that separates winners from everyone else. Success has always been inside of you. The question is, are you willing to dig deep enough to bring it out? Excuses are one of the most expensive habits a person can afford because they cost you your future. Think about it. Every time you tell yourself why something can't be done, you just built a wall around your potential. Excuses feel comfortable in the moment because they let you off the hook. But what they don't tell you is that comfort is the cage that keeps you stuck. You can't build wealth. You can't build influence. And you can't build a life of freedom on excuses. They sound good. They may even get sympathy from other people, but sympathy doesn't change your life. Excuses don't build empires. Action does. Here's a hook for you. If excuses worked, everybody who used them would be successful. But we both know that's not how it works. The people who live their dreams are the ones who've mastered the art of refusing excuses. They get up when it's inconvenient. They move forward when it's uncomfortable. And they find a way when other people are finding a reason. That's the separator. Winners see excuses for what they are, dressed up lies designed to protect comfort and kill progress. Somebody might be saying, but you don't understand, my circumstances are tough. And I'll agree, they probably are. But let me ask you, do you want your circumstances to define you, or do you want to redefine your circumstances? Every successful person you admire had obstacles in their way, sometimes worse than yours. But instead of giving power to excuses, they gave power to determination. And when you feed determination, excuses starve. You can't serve both. Either you will serve your excuses or you will serve your goals. Let's get practical. When someone says, I don't have time, what they're really saying is, it's not important enough to me. Because the truth is, time is never found, it's always made. The same 24 hours are given to the person who is struggling and the person who is thriving. The only difference is how they invest those hours. One uses them to build excuses. The other uses them to build results. So the real question is not whether you have time. The question is, what are you choosing to prioritize? Here's another excuse killer. People say, I don't have the resources. And that might be true. You may not have the money, the tools, or the connections right now, but let me remind you, resources don't create resourcefulness. Resourcefulness creates resources. If you're willing to think differently, work creatively, and persist consistently, you'll find doors that other people can't even see. But if you lean on the excuse of not having enough, you'll miss the fact that you already have enough to start. Nobody starts with everything. The difference is that successful people start with what they've got, while excuse makers wait until they have what they'll never get. Excuses also love to disguise themselves as logic. You'll hear people say things like, it's not the right time, or I'll start when things settle down. But let's be real, life never settles down. There's always going to be a reason why it's inconvenient. The question is whether you will move in spite of the inconvenience. Because when you build the habit of moving anyway, you build a life that excuses can't control. And that's how you break free from the trap most people live in. And here's the hook I'll leave you with. Your excuses are not just stealing your time, they're stealing your testimony. Someone out there needs your story, someone needs your product, someone needs your example. And if you let excuses win, not only do you lose, but they lose too. That's how costly excuses really are. So the next time you're tempted to explain why you can't, stop and remind yourself that empires are not built on explanations. They're built on execution. One of the greatest prisons people live in is the prison of waiting for permission. They have ideas, they have dreams, they have the fire inside of them to create something extraordinary, but they sit on the sidelines waiting for someone to come and validate them. They wait for approval from family, from friends, from bosses, from society, and all the while the clock is ticking. Here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need permission to succeed. You don't need permission to start building wealth. You don't need permission to live a life of purpose. The moment you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself permission, that's the moment everything shifts. Permission is a prison, and only you hold the key. Here's the hook. You are either living in destiny or in delay, and delay is almost always disguised as waiting for permission. You hear people say things like, I'm just waiting for the right time, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting until someone believes in me. But the right time doesn't arrive until you decide it has. Opportunity doesn't knock. You build the door and open it yourself. Nobody is coming with a golden ticket to your dreams. The only one who can unlock the door is you. Now think about how many people leave this world with their musics still inside them because they never stepped out. They let fear of rejection stop them, fear of failure stop them, fear of looking foolish stop them. And all those fears are tied to one thing. They were waiting for someone else to say, you're good enough, you're ready, you're approved. But approval is not the fuel of success. Action is. If you wait for someone to crown you, you'll never reign. You've got to crown yourself by stepping into what you were created to do. Let me ask you, who told you that you weren't qualified? Who told you that you had to wait for a green light? Most of the limits we live with our imaginary lines, we've accepted because someone else drew them. Maybe a teacher told you you'd never make it. Maybe a boss overlooked you. Maybe a friend doubted you. And you've carried that as if it was truth. But here's the reality: other people's opinions don't pay your bills. Their permission doesn't build your future. Their approval doesn't unlock your destiny. You've been waiting for permission from people who don't even have the life you want. That's like asking directions from someone who's never been where you're trying to go. When you stop asking for permission, something powerful happens. You start to realize that the authority to create has been in you the entire time. The authority to start that business, the authority to write that book, the authority to change your habits, the authority to transform your life, it's been inside you from the beginning. And when you operate with that understanding, you stop apologizing for your ambition. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't get it. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You realize that playing small doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve anyone else. Here's the final hook. You are either waiting for a signal, or you are being the signal. The world doesn't need more people waiting. It needs more people willing to move. Every breakthrough you admire in history started with a man or woman who stopped waiting for permission. They gave themselves permission to act, and because they acted, the world was changed. And if you're still waiting for someone to validate you, let me be the one to say it right now. You are enough, you are ready, and you don't need anybody else to sign off on your future. The only permission slip that matters is the one you write yourself. Discipline and consistency are two words that people don't usually like to hear, but they are the foundation of every success story you've ever admired. Too often, people look at the results of someone else's life and think they must have been lucky, or they had opportunities I didn't. But luck has very little to do with it. What looks like luck on the outside is almost always the harvest of discipline and consistency on the inside. Discipline is the seed, and consistency is the water. You can plant a seed today, but if you don't keep watering it, you'll never see a harvest. Here's the hook. Most people are not failing because they don't have potential. They're failing because they keep planting seeds and walking away before anything grows. They get excited about a new goal, a new business, a new opportunity, but the moment it gets hard or boring, they stop showing up. Imagine a farmer planting crops and then digging them up every week to see if they're growing fast enough. That's how most people treat their goals. They start, they stop, they restart, and they never stay long enough to reap the reward. Consistency is not glamorous, but it's what guarantees the harvest. Discipline is the ability to do what you said you would do long after the feeling has left you. Anybody can be motivated for a day. Anybody can be disciplined for a week. But the ones who win are the ones who keep showing up when the feeling is gone, when the excitement has faded, when nobody is cheering. That's the test of greatness. Consistency is the proof that you're serious about your future. If you only act when it's convenient, your results will always be average. But when you learn to act even when it's inconvenient, your results will begin to separate you from the crowd. Now, let's get practical. Think about the areas in your life where you want results: your health, your finances, your relationships, your business. None of those transform overnight. You can't go to the gym once and expect to be fit. You can't read one book and expect to be wise. You can't make one phone call and expect a business empire. Success is built on the boring repetition of the right actions, day after day, month after month, year after year. The repetition feels small in the moment, but over time it compounds into something extraordinary. Consistency is the compound interest of discipline. Here's another hook for you. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent, it's consistency. Plenty of talented people are broke. Plenty of gifted people never get recognized. Why? Because they never develop the discipline to keep showing up. The marketplace doesn't reward potential, it rewards results. And results only come to those who stick with the process. You don't have to be the smartest, the fastest, or the most talented. You just have to be the most consistent. And let's be real, discipline doesn't feel good in the moment. Waking up early doesn't feel good. Saving money instead of spending it doesn't feel good. Choosing to work on your goals when you'd rather be distracted doesn't feel good. But discipline isn't about what feels good now. It's about what feels good later. Success is about trading temporary comfort for long-term reward. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. Which one do you want to carry? Here's the final hook. Every time you act with discipline and consistency, you are casting a vote for the future version of yourself. And every time you give into laziness and excuses, you are casting a vote for the life you say you don't want. The choice is yours every single day. Seeds only grow when they are planted and watered consistently. So if you want to harvest, stop waiting for the perfect season and start watering the seeds you've already planted. The harvest doesn't belong to the talented. The harvest belongs to the consistent. Ownership is one of the most powerful decisions you can ever make, yet it's the one most people run from. It's easier to say, they didn't give me a chance. They didn't believe in me. They didn't help me, than it is to say, I didn't do what I could have done. But here's the reality. Every time you blame, you give away your power. Ownership activates power. The moment you take full responsibility for your results, for your failures, and for your future, that's the moment you step into control of your life. Here's the hook. Blame feels good in the short term, but it bankrupts you in the long term. It might feel lighter to put the weight on someone else's shoulders, but that also means you've just handed them the steering wheel to your life. If your success depends on what they do, then you're not driving. You're just a passenger. And passengers don't get to choose the destination. That's why ownership matters. The minute you say, this is on me, you take the wheel back, and now you can drive your life in the direction you were meant to go. Think about it. When a business owner makes a mistake, they don't get to call their competitors and say, well, it's your fault I failed. They have to look at what they did, where they dropped the ball, and how they can fix it. That's why they grow. But most people live as if someone else owns their life. They hand responsibility to their boss, to the economy, to their past, even to their family, and then wonder why nothing changes. Ownership is the secret that shifts you from being at the mercy of life to becoming the master of your life. And let me break this down. Ownership is not about guilt or shame. It's not about beating yourself up for every mistake you've made. It's about recognizing that if you created results you don't like, then you also have the power to create results you will love. That's not condemnation. That's liberation. Because if it's your fault, then it's also in your hands to fix. And that's the most empowering place you can ever be. Here's another hook. Your breakthrough is not waiting on their apology. It's waiting on your decision. Some people are still stuck because they're waiting for someone to say sorry, waiting for someone to make it right. But life doesn't move forward with apologies. It moves forward with ownership. The moment you say, regardless of what they did, I will take responsibility for my response, you unlock a level of freedom and power most people never experience. Now let's get practical. If your finances aren't where you want them to be, take ownership. Don't just blame your job or the cost of living. Ask yourself, what decisions have I made with my money that brought me here? And what decisions can I start making differently? If your health isn't where you want it, take ownership. Don't just blame genetics or busy schedules. Ask yourself, what choices have I made with my habits? And what can I start doing today to change them? If your relationships aren't fulfilling, take ownership. Don't just point fingers. Ask, What have I contributed, and how can I contribute differently? When you ask questions like this, you stop waiting for change and start creating it. And here's the final hook. Ownership is not a burden. Ownership is your superpower. It gives you back control over your destiny. When you own your choices, you own your future. When you start saying they and start saying me, you unlock the kind of power that makes you unstoppable. Because the truth is, nobody can stop a person who refuses to be a victim. Ownership is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. The only question is whether you're willing to cross it. 10 years from now, your future self is going to show up. And the only question is whether that person will thank you or blame you. That thought alone should shake you because it reminds you that every single decision you make today is casting a vote for the life you're going to live tomorrow. People underestimate the compound effect of daily choices. They think the small decisions don't matter, but the truth is those little choices are shaping the person you are becoming. The habits you practice, the thoughts you allow, the actions you repeat, they are all creating the version of you that will step into your life a decade from now. And here's the hook. You are either building your future or sabotaging it, and the evidence will be clear when you meet the person you become. It's easy to believe that the future will just work itself out, but the reality is that the future is nothing more than the echo of today's decisions. If you spend your days making excuses, your future self will be buried under the weight of those excuses. If you spend your days making disciplined choices, your future self will live in the freedom of those choices. You don't get to escape the harvest. You can only choose the seeds. And 10 years from now, you will either walk into a garden of success or a wasteland of regret, depending on what you decide to plant today. Here's another hook. Your future self is watching you right now. Imagine that. Imagine the person you're becoming standing over your shoulder, looking at the decisions you make. Are they proud? Are they disappointed? Are they inspired? Every time you decide to procrastinate, every time you settle for less, every time you allow fear to win, your future self feels the weight of that choice. But every time you take ownership, every time you show up with discipline, every time you push through discomfort, your future self celebrates because you're building a foundation that they can stand on. The truth is, most people don't ruin their lives in one dramatic decision. They ruin their lives in 1,000 small ones. They don't get overweight in a day. They don't go broke in a day. They don't destroy their dreams in a day. It happens one little compromise at a time. And because the consequences aren't immediate, they trick themselves into thinking it doesn't matter. But when the future arrives, those small decisions show up as massive results. Regret is nothing more than the receipt for decisions that felt good in the moment, but robbed you in the long run. Now let's flip it. Just as small compromises add up to regret, small disciplines add up to greatness. Reading a few pages of a book every day, saving a little money consistently, exercising even when it's uncomfortable. Those actions feel small, but they compound into a life that most people only dream about. Success rarely shows up in fireworks. It shows up in the quiet consistency of daily action. 10 years from now, your future self will look back and say, "Thank you for doing what didn't feel good in the moment, because now I get to live in the reward." And let's not miss this. Your future self isn't the only one depending on you. your family, your community, maybe even people you haven't met yet, are all going to be impacted by the person you become. Your decisions today ripple outward. You might think it's just my life, but it's not. Your growth or your lack of growth will affect everyone connected to you. That's why it's not selfish to work on yourself. It's necessary. Because the stronger you become, the more you have to give. Here's the final hook. Picture the moment 10 years from now when you meet yourself. Will you shake hands with someone who inspires you, or will you stare into the eyes of someone who wishes you had been stronger, braver, more disciplined? That choice is being made right now. And the beauty of it is, you don't need 10 years to start feeling the reward. The moment you begin living as if your future self is counting on you, you activate a kind of power that changes everything. Every action becomes intentional, every day becomes meaningful, and every choice becomes a step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be,